Episode four. Episode four, we're here.
We're
And there
here.
are some incredible storylines in college football this week. I mean, it's only been a week since we last spoke, but it feels like an entire season has just passed in the last 7 days. A bit of a hectic couple of days, both on and off the football field. And as always, I'm joined by the amazing Lauren, all the way from Florida, the University of Florida. The Gator is in the house. How are we doing, Lauren?
Doing great. Coming off a trip from New York where I got to go see the Gators basketball team play. Got to cover that game. It was super awesome. Coming up on graduation in 2 days. So there's a lot of things going on over here, but this is like my one thing that is constant right now. So it's going great.
Are the Florida Gator basketball team as bad as the football team?
No, we are 5-4 right now, but we are national champs. So that just doesn't matter.
Oh. You won the national championship last year in basketball.
We did.
Oh, okay. So you're not that bad.
Just like
then.
drop that out of nowhere. Yeah, we're national champs.
Yeah, that's pretty nice storyline. Actually, I don't follow college basketball, so I wouldn't know, but
yeah, it was pretty awesome. It was in San Antonio, Texas, and I went to the game. It was the greatest day of my life. And nothing has really topped it, to be honest. Like I said, I graduate in 2 days. It probably will not surmount the feeling of watching the Gators win the national championship in the Alamo Dome. It was just top tier.
Did you you were there physically?
Yes. Like I was in Texas, in San Antonio.
And it's one of the best days of your life.
Absolutely. I was following this team and reporting on this team all season. And it's our only good team right now, other than track is really good. Swimming always does well. Golf wins national championships all the time. And that's amazing for them. I could never do it. But in terms of teams that people pay attention to, like basketball, be the national champion, it's a pretty big deal.
Wow. No March Madness for you then next year, I guess, if you're graduating, but
I can still go as a fan. I just want to be as a student.
Oh yeah, of course. Okay, so we'll bring it from basketball to football. As I said, a lot happened. We will discuss things on the field. First of all, obviously, the major storyline coming out from this weekend, Indiana and Ohio State. The previously 1 and 2 ranked teams, Ohio State were the 1 ranked team in the country. Indiana and their fairy tale story with Mendoza at quarterback. Also unbeaten on the season, just an incredible storyline altogether. And the fact that they were up there alongside Georgia and Texas Tech at the top of the playoff bracket. And everybody had their eyes in this game. It was the 2 best teams in the country basically playing. I personally had favored Ohio State. And what happened? Indiana come out on top. A huge win. Probably the greatest college storyline from a team maybe ever. Just an incredible year from Indiana. They're now 13-0. They finished the season as the number 1 ranked team in the nation. They knock off Ohio State, who previously hadn't lost a game. Just honestly, overall, looking at Indiana's just whole season, finishing 13-0, the number 1 seed. Nobody saw it coming, but what a season from Indiana, honestly.
It's just amazing what their head coach, Kirk Cignetti, has been able to do in the 2 years that he's been there. And everyone says it, just that is the definition of what you want a coach to do with your program when they come in. I mean, like you said, no one has really taken Indiana seriously in the past couple of years. They looked good last year, but nothing compared to this year. I mean, Cignetti taking over and doing a 180 with this team and then having a quarterback like Fernando Mendoza. I mean, that helps significantly, of course. And then, you have someone like Kalen Black and Charlie Becker who is able to go and do amazing things on the offensive side. But like you said, it's just no one really saw it coming. But if you paid attention, the signs were there. There's a reason that Mendoza has been in the Heisman race for so long now. And now, he's the AP poll player of the year. That's a huge accomplishment for him. Did you watch his speech after the game? Because it was just everyone over his speech. It was all over Twitter. It was all over social media. Just that's the kind of guy that you want being your quarterback. You could see his leadership on the field and through the camera. Just, I was really happy for him. He looked like he was about to cry. I thought I was going to cry. I was just so happy for him. I don't even know the guy.
It was very reminiscent of Kirk Cousins. When I just watched that, I just couldn't stop thinking of someone like Kirk Cousins. He just comes across extremely wholesome like very, very just sincere, friendly guy. I had seen the clip of that post game interview, and I was like, oh, I'll check it out. I didn't have much context on him because I kind of just I'm more into the football side of things. I don't really know much about these, a lot of players, let's say what their personalities are like, for example. I was so impressed. I couldn't believe that this is actually the quarterback because like it just straight away he's a very likable guy. Like when you see an interview like that and you immediately resonate. He's just very wholesome, pleasant, like kind, and just what an interesting character. Like I think when you look at a player like that and then transitioning into the professional league, and presumably he's going to be picked at the top end of the draft next year. It's just an interesting dynamic to go into a dressing room like that because, I think maybe there's a perception that quarterbacks have to be traditionally quite loud, dominant, boisterous, like the alpha in the dressing room. And I don't quite get that impression from him. Now, I could be completely wrong there. He's obviously led his team to an undefeated season and a very impressive season at that for him personally and for his entire program. But it was just interesting to see a modern day quarterback speak like that, and it almost felt kind of gentle.
Yeah, and like we said, like his storyline is just very impressive. I mean, he's a redshirt junior, like coming in as quarterback, like, and to have all of this talk around his name for Heisman with names like Diego Pavia, and then you have Julian Sand with Ohio State, and then Jeremiah Love with Notre Dame, who's obviously like not a quarterback, but it's just the hype around him was starting to get really significant once people started to see like this guy came to play. And like I was saying, from his interview to just how his presence on the field, like his players respect him, his coaches respect him. He carries himself very well on and off the field. And I think that that's a big reason that so many people are a fan of his and why he is one of the biggest like talked about names for the Heisman. Like he's the overwhelming choice all around from what I've seen. And a lot of like a big storyline from the Ohio State Indiana game was like whoever wins could win the Heisman. Like if Ohio State won, Julian Sane would probably be the number one choice right now. And look at Indiana won, and now all anyone can talk about is Fernando Mendoza, but rightfully so. I mean, he's a very talented quarterback. I told you last week, I did say that they would run up numbers on them, but I did think that they were going to win. Each team only had one touchdown. But at the end of the day, they won. But I mean, is also like Ohio State kicker missing that. I mean, I know that he couldn't hate himself any more than he does right now.
Yeah.
But in the social media, the backlash to him was really, really funny. It was mean, but it was really funny. Like what they were saying to the quarterback on Ohio State's Instagram and the kicker's Instagram. It was a lot of just like backlash of like, I hate you. Like, why did you do this to us? Like, you're awful. A lot of things that I probably can't say and just like aren't appropriate. But if it weren't for him missing that, it would have gone to overtime, and who knows what we'd be talking about now. But at the end of the day, Fernando Mendoza and Kirk Cincinnati and the Hoosiers, they got it done. So now they are number one. They are first in the playoff bracket, so they get to have that first round bye. But Mendoza is still my number one pick. Would you still say that Sand is your number one pick for the Heisman?
No. Okay,
good. Just want to make
sure. Okay, so there's a couple of things to consider here, because the Heisman, people look at the Heisman and maybe compare to like the MVP in the league, right? Like it's a heavily statistical based, right? So American football is a very heavy, like numbers orientated sport. They, especially the quarterback position, it's attempts, completions, completion percentage, touchdowns, interceptions, yards, like it's all numbers, right? It's all stats, and based on your stat line, that is where they draw their kind of, opinion of whether you're a good quarterback, an elite quarterback, or a Hall of Fame worthy quarterback, right? So when I look at Mendoza, and like this Heisman Mendoza, it just kind of suits actually, but it's just the numbers are just not there, right? The numbers are not elite. I don't even think, actually, statistically speaking, he's the best quarterback this year in college football. But the Heisman is incredibly storyline based. You mentioned storylines just there. The Heisman is a storyline based award, similarly as we saw last year with Travis Hunter, a dual player, played both sides of the football. Now we see Mendoza. He's the quarterback of a school who nobody really rated coming into the season. He leads them undefeated, 13-0, number one team in the country, just defeated Ohio State, the previous number one team in the country. And I think it's just the storyline is carrying. I mean, this is just it's to compare it to English football, it's like in 2016 when Leicester City won the Premier League, which is just the most ridiculous thing ever. It's similar, like what Indiana has done is basically the same thing. It's just a team that have come from out of nowhere and taken the top seed. Mendoza's storyline is part of that. He is, an intricate part of the entire Hoosiers season. And I think the Heisman Award for him is becoming narrative based. So like he deserves it. Sure, he's done a great job. But if you look at what he has done compared to previous years, previous Heisman winners, especially quarterbacks going back for the last 5 or 10 years, you look at Joe Burrow's incredible season in 2019, for example. I mean, that was a bit of an outlier, but still, Mendoza's numbers are just not there. And like, I'm not trying to be harsh, but like his yards, his touchdowns, they're just not at that elite level. It's a bit of a down year for quarterback performance anyway, but the storyline, it's too good to be true for Indiana, and he does deserve it. Although, I just don't. It's just not been. It hasn't been an elite. It hasn't been an elite season,
Yeah, like normally, in a season, you're like, that guy is the Heisman winner. Like, that, or at least a couple guys where you're like, they are going to be talked about of who is going to be the Heisman this year. Last year, you already knew that Travis Hunter was going to be a part of those talks, and then he goes and wins. But this year, I feel like there is not one singular person where you're like, that guy's definitely winning the Heisman. And, the numbers aren't as stacked as, I guess, like everyone else. I mean, Julian Sand, for example, he has 3,300 yards with 31 touchdowns, but Mendoza has 2,900 yards. It's almost 3,000, 2,980 with 33 touchdowns, with, 2 more touchdowns than obviously Sand does. And actually, I was just looking at it. The quarterback ranking, Sand is above Mendoza, but like the percentage is crazy. Like it's literally 0.02, like 1.02. Like Julian Sand has a 89.6 QBR ranking. Mendoza has an 88.4. So yes, numbers are taken into it, but you also have to consider like, their strength of schedule. Who have they had to play? What have they had to do? I always said that I thought that Julian Sand had receivers like Jeremiah Smith who just like make him look good no matter what. Like obviously he's going to be a good quarterback. They're going to win, and you're going to have all eyes and everyone's going to be talking about Julian Sand when you have an offense that looks like that. But then it wasn't so much like that for Mendoza. And that's what I think is so rich about him too, is that while his numbers are slightly lower than everyone else's, but like just barely lower, like he's still such an impressive player. And 33 touchdowns is not bad. 33 touchdowns is still pretty impressive for a quarterback. And I mean, they really haven't had the toughest schedule, the toughest opponents, but he still came out and worked as hard as he possibly could. And every single first drive of the game, he got hurt against Ohio State and he came right back out. Like he was like, no, I'm fine. I'm in. They put his brother in for one play, didn't do anything, put him right back in. He was in the rest of the game. And like we said, it wasn't a super high scoring game, 13-10 final score, but it was just what he was able to do on the field to lead his team to that win, which is why I think he should win the Heisman.
Yeah, I'm like I don't disagree. I mean, just when you were just naming the stats there, like like let's just say Sayan and Mendoza, and then I just in the back of my mind I'm thinking of like Joe Burrow's season 2019. Like he had double the amount of yards and double the amount of touchdowns. Now, like as I said, outlier season of course, but I think when you look at quarterbacks. Like if a quarterback is to win the most outstanding player in college football, I think you need to be a really outstanding quarterback. And I just haven't seen that from any specific individual this year. Although obviously Indiana as a team, they've done a great job. But outside of that, I mean, let's say if you remove those two quarterbacks from the conversation, who else is there? Like there isn't really a better prospect in my opinion. Jeremiah Love's had a good season at Notre Dame. Like is it Heisman worthy? I mean, no. He's the best running? He's had the best running back season for sure. But again, I like it's the kind of debate that people have over Hall of Fame quarterback. Like let's say Eli Manning or someone like that. It's like like he's had good bits and there's bad bits there, but is there enough? And for me, like I think if Mendoza was up against previous Heisman winners, Kyler Murray, I don't know, Baker Mayfield, even. Jaden Daniels, like in recent seasons, like I just don't think he'd actually win. But what he's done with Indiana is incredible, obviously.
Yeah. And it is an outlier season for sure. He is only 10 of FBS quarterbacks to have higher than a 70% completion of their passes. And that's why it is an outlier. But at the end of the day, he produced wins. And that's the reason that he is so high in talks. I mean, I also think that it's an outlier for several reasons, not just I mean, if you just look at the coaching carousel of this season alone, I mean, this is a very weird season of football. Like, it was the most dramatic and had the most storylines out of any season that I've been a part of or that I've paid attention to. I mean, every single week it was a coach, it was a player, it was, even this week with Michigan's coach, there's always something being talked about. Like, this is why I love college football. There's so many storylines. And this year, more than ever, with the coaching poll and the carousel that was going in and out every single week, like, there was nothing, you can't say it was everything but interesting. You know what I mean? Like, the Heisman now, it's at the end of the season, so this is what everybody talks about. But every single week of college football this year, you had a storyline. And now it's just, Mendoza and the Heisman. And this, if the outlier is going to be if he was the best quarterback who's going to receive it, if, he wins. And if he's not, either way, he's still the Heisman. He did say on Saturday, though, that he would rather win the national championship than the Heisman. And that is very selfless. I think that also says a lot about him as a person. And, who knows? He could go and win both.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, he's just won the AP Player of the Year. So I'm sure he'll be adding to his his trophy shelf. But as you mentioned, Michigan, it's a major storyline right now. The University of Michigan, obviously, they've had a bit of an off year. Major storylines coming out right now about their head coach. They've just fired their head coach, Sharon Moore. There are investigations ongoing. we don't need to go too much into it, but obviously, the authorities in Michigan are looking into it. There's kind of been maybe, to keep it simple, there was a breach of trust within the staff in the University of Michigan. And I think, as far as what I read, the university just took a stance and they said, look, there is an absolute zero tolerance policy or acceptance for this kind of behavior. Sharon Moore, probably crossed lines both professionally and obviously personally with, his own family and stuff. So major storylines coming out. He is gone. University of Michigan is a very tempting job. Maybe a little bit less tempting now because you risk, kind of a bit of a media circus around it. But I feel like a media circus is inevitable at the top level of college sports, especially in college football. Even Billy Napier, I remember like kind of all this kind of like ridiculous stories about him in Florida and stuff like that. So like, I think it's inevitable. Is the University of Michigan job is it desirable? I mean, I read reports of like maybe like an NFL coach, maybe a defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, like even Harbaugh maybe heading back to Michigan. Like, is that kind of on the cards now? How much trouble are Michigan in firing their head coach and coming off a bit of a bad season? And I will just add to that. I don't know how true it is, but Bryce Underwood, their freshman quarterback, potentially also entering the transfer portal and maybe joining Lane Kiffin, your best friend, in LSU. So it could be, really trouble in the University of Michigan.
I still think that it is a desirable position. Like, to coach at the University of Michigan is such a profound thing to have. And obviously we just talked about like Harbaugh had it. I honestly don't think he's allowed to coach there again yet, to be honest with you. But it is still a desirable position because it's kind of the same as what I said when Billy Napier was fired from Florida. So it's interesting that you said his name. Is like, you can't come in and do worse. You know what I mean? Like, he was fired for having the inappropriate relations with a staff member. He did wrong outside and inside of University of Michigan, but he is gone now. That was a bad dude. You can't come in and really do much worse than what he is leaving the program as. Like, he's leaving being arrested. Like, as long as you come in scot-free without cuffs, I mean, you're okay for the job, in my opinion. I mean, and there's a lot of talk right now that Kalen DeBoer, Alabama's coach, could be like, that could be a potential candidate for them. And then the joke was, if DeBoer goes there, then wouldn't Kiffin want to go to Alabama? But I'm like, Kiffin's in Baton Rouge, man. He's signed his housing. Like, he's done. Like, I've accepted that. I don't really care, whatever. But I think that it is still a good coaching position for several reasons. I mean, it's always been a very respected program. And there's a reason that when Ohio State and Michigan play every year, it doesn't have a name. It's just called the game. That is the game, is Michigan and Ohio State. And so any coach that comes into there is going to have high expectations on their back. And I think that it takes a special kind of coach, a talented coach who has experience in running a good offense, the same as Michigan has been able to do, that Coach Moore has been able to do with this team. Yes, they didn't finish the season how they want to, but every year that game will still be called the game. It will still, you'll see Michigan on your schedule and you'll know that that's going to be a hard game to play because of the talent that they always have in there. I guess now it's going to depend on who decides to go into the portal following all of this, but it will also depend on who they get to replace him. So no matter what, it's still going to be desirable. It's still going to be a competitive team in years to come that, is of course, if they continue looking the way that they do, but I don't see a reason unless you get someone who's terrible. If you, for some reason, put a group of 5 coach in the Michigan spot who's never done anything before, then maybe I'd have to eat my words. But as of now, it seems like a desirable job, and it seems like one that a talented coach who has a lot of experience and good offenses and being able to do a lot with a team that they would want.
Yeah. And I'm sure, like Michigan have the resources. I think as we've spoken about throughout this show, like NIL plays a huge part now. They definitely have the resources to attract top talent. They will be able to pay a good coach. But I mean, like you're looking at, these major schools who are not involved in the playoff picture this year. Obviously, we spoke about LSU being incredibly unranked, Lane Kiffin going there. Michigan also unranked, but these are big schools that we're not really getting to cover because they're just not really involved in the playoff picture. Mm-hmm. But speaking of the playoff picture, so as we said, the season is the quote unquote regular season is now complete. Indiana finishing the season undefeated, 13-0. We now have a complete playoff picture. And as is classic with college football, this did not go smoothly either. Of course, everything in the last 7 days in college football has had major question marks around it. And the playoffs, there will always be teams upset. And there will always be players, fan bases, coaches. People in the media will be upset with the final decision, right? Because you're bound to have, the way the college football system is designed, you're bound to have multiple teams on the same record. So on the fringes of the playoffs, you usually have maybe 2-3 losses. But, as you said, depending on things like the strength of schedule, your conference, different things going on, the playoff, kind of grand masters will just rank you differently. So it's always quite ambiguous. And when the final ranking comes out, there is what I think is kind of a ridiculous rule to include other conference champions. So, for example, this season we have Tulane and James Madison. They're just not competitive programs, right? You're talking about these kind of programs going up against, for example, Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, right? If they even get that far. But you risk, and this is something that you mentioned a few weeks back, you risk just entering a situation where there is just bad football in the playoffs. Like what you want in the playoffs is to really be advertising the sport and putting the best players, the best people out there and saying, look, these are the final teams, and this is the best football that we can produce as a college nation. And then you include Tulane, and for me, it's a bit like kind of a participation trophy. It's kind of like, hey, like these random kids from the West Coast, like hop on in here, but they're just not good enough. And I get that there's a whole kind of conference element, because otherwise the conferences just become irrelevant. The SEC will never be irrelevant though, so don't worry about that. But for example, there was major dispute this season because, as I said, Tulane and James Madison squeeze in at the bottom of the rankings. So you exclude teams like Notre Dame, Texas, and Vanderbilt. They were kind of the 3 most topical ones. And they just have no place in the college football playoffs now because of this kind of conference champion rule. Notre Dame have since stepped away from many bowl games. That also had, the kind of college scene talking a lot. Just massive debates. And this seems to happen every year. They previously moved it from 4 teams to 12. You're a fan of 4. 12 is what it's doing right now. I mean, like, is there room for more expansion? Do you think less expansion? Like, do you actually think, returning back to the 4 is better? Like, is there a solution here? Is this a bad look for college football?
I just think that once they hit 12, like there's no going back, because like they did it this way on purpose. I do think that it depends on the G5 team that has to go in. In this case, I think that Tulane is a competitor. I think that they are going to give Ole Miss a run for their money. I honestly don't know who I'm rooting for in that one because John Summerall is Florida's new head coach, and he is Tulane's head coach because he's finishing out the season with them as they go into the college football playoffs. Obviously, I want the best for him. I want him to come to this program feeling like he left that one as best as he possibly could. But I also would love to see Ole Miss kind of just like slap Lane Kiffin in the face and show that they can win without him. So I don't know who I probably will end up wanting to root for Tulane. That I do think that that's going to be a very competitive game. Like if you look at stats in previous years, like obviously the stats are the boring part, but it's also an interesting storyline because of teams winning and losing when it comes to Group of 5 teams and ACC teams and who puts up the biggest, fight. But Tulane has done just that all year. I mean, they're 11-2. They won their conference, they beat North Texas and earned their spot in the bracket. If it was North Texas, then I would have said it was going to be a blowout. I think that Tulane is clearly the better team. That's why they won. But if it was going to be Ole Miss and North Texas, Ole Miss would have gotten the job done easily in the first quarter, I would say. But Tulane is a competitive team. Now, when it comes to Oregon and JMU, I think that JMU will compete for sure. Another, Florida former head coach, Billy Napier, he is the new head coach of JMU, taking over next season. Yeah, interesting, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't think that that's going to be as close of a game. It's still going to be competitive because JMU is a talented team. They have a lot of really talented guys on there. But Oregon, it's Oregon. Like I expect it to be a little bit competitive, make it some good football to watch. But in terms of the teams that they have to put in there compared to JMU and Tulane, I think that Tulane will be the better game. But the only reason that I don't like the 12-team bracket is just because I think it's unnecessary. Like if right now we were planning on watching Texas Tech and Indiana and Georgia and Ohio State, I would be okay with that. If you were to tell me that there's going to be an Indiana and Ohio State rematch for the national championship, which could still happen. That is still a possibility that there's going to be a rematch. That's good football. That's interesting to watch. But then on the other hand, like I like seeing these teams compete, like just giving their all, like Oklahoma and Alabama. Like it's really hard to beat Alabama twice. Like, and Oklahoma's going to have to go in there and do that. Ty Simpson going up against John Mateer. John Mateer was in Heisman talks at the beginning of the season. He got hurt, came back, I think it was 17 days later to go and play Texas, then lost and not look like himself. He hasn't looked like himself since the injury, but another talented quarterback. So Simpson and Mateer are two good quarterbacks going up against each other. Again, a game that I want to watch, that fans want to watch. But the committee is where like I have most of my beef because like it's literally all like I'm watching the selection and I'm just looking at all these people and I'm like, it's just your opinion. It's just what you want, like Miami fans were ecstatic that they finally slipped into the playoff. They had just missed it last year. And we knew this year it was going to be Miami and Notre Dame. It was going to come down to who's who. And once Miami got in, you knew that Notre Dame was not. And I think that it's just kind of, if you're going to be independent, you're not going to be a part of a conference, you can't go and cry about it per se. Like you don't have a set schedule with real competitors because you don't belong to a conference. And then you're invited to a bowl game, of course, and then you deny that because you're a sore loser, essentially. That's how I viewed it. That's how most of college football's fan base is viewing it, except for Notre Dame fans. It's like, you didn't make it. Sorry. Miami was in the same position last year. You didn't make it this year. Go back and work harder next year. Play the bowl game. Just do. Who cares? Like, that's my opinion on it. Like, I just think it looks really, really bad on them. And everybody agrees. Like, the teams that are in the bracket are the teams that I'm like, I don't care about Miami being in it. I don't think that Alabama should be in it, in my opinion. But, they're a good team, I guess. But I don't think that they should be in the bracket. But the teams that are in it, I'm like satisfied enough other than Alabama. But I think that Miami deserved it more than Notre Dame. Miami did beat them at the beginning of the season, 27-24. They did have that win. Notre Dame only had 3 ranked wins this year, and they lost 2 of them. They have a 10-2 schedule, or a 10-2 record, 10 wins. 1 of them was a ranked team. Those 2 losses were 2 of the 3 ranked teams they played, and they lost. Like, they're a competitive team, but because they don't belong to a conference, they don't have a set group of a lot of ranked teams that they're going to have to face. I feel like Miami earned their spot in the bracket this year a lot more than Notre Dame did.
Yeah. And I think also like it seemed, at least from my perspective, that the decision not to play in the bowl game was more of a it was like the Notre Dame hierarchy. It was maybe the coaches or maybe, people behind the scenes. So like actually the people who were mostly impacted by that, it actually the players, and I thought like, okay, so let's say you have a situation where you've got a player who's been in Notre Dame for 3 years and he's a senior now, and maybe he's entering the draft, or maybe he's not entering the draft, or whatever. And then you're kind of told, maybe you have this bowl game, this kind of like my last college game. Like I've given Notre Dame everything for the last 3 years, 4 years, maybe.
Years
and maybe you're thinking like, oh yeah, like my senior year bowl game, like I'm going to give it all and then I'm going to retire. Like maybe it might be my last game of football, in my life, and I'm going to go pursue something else. And then you reach that point and you've kind of got, as you said, kind of a sore loser, maybe a few people behind the scenes who are a little bit stung by the decision of the playoffs. And it's kind of like, well, now it's just taken away from you, right? And equally, other players who maybe, we're looking for tape and stuff to improve their draft stock. It's just another game taken away. And the impression I get, I think some college players, you do hear college players backing out of bowl games, maybe if they're going to be high draft picks and stuff. But I as we can tell with your passion for Florida, I think college players really love representing their schools, and they probably, most of them, I would say, if given the choice, would probably want to play as many bowl games as possible, or as many kind of those high stake games. I'm sure they're disappointed, but like it's just an extra opportunity to represent the school they love, and in some cases get more tape, because a player could have a standout game in a bowl game and then kind of start to rise up some draft boards. So like it's just an extra, almost like job interview for these players, an extra game with a lot of eyes on their game. And I think the coaches, like I like Notre Dame, but like the coaches kind of have just taken away that opportunity from them. And it seems like just a bit of bitterness. Like I saw a video, the Texas head coach Sarkisian, and he like very gracefully, I'm sure he's absolutely disgusted like about how his season went, and he just very gracefully accepts a bowl game invite. It's like that's how sports should be. Like, okay, you guys didn't make it, you guys lost a couple of games, like too bad, but don't cry over spilled milk. Like you still have an opportunity to represent your school and and put more players on the map, and give these guys, especially for seniors, give them a proper send off, and let them kind of have their respectful conclusion to their college careers. And it's just like, nah.
Exactly.
I'm feeling a bit salty.
Yeah, like it's a game of winning and losing, and in the sense of college football playoffs, like you lost, get over it. Like I know it's a tough pill to swallow, but there's 13 other teams that have to do the same thing. So what makes you so much better? You don't even belong to a conference. Like you ask for it at that point.
So interesting point there. We've spoken about conferences a lot. The SEC, the Southeastern Conference, includes the Florida Gators, Alabama, the kind of the big schools, most of the schools that make the headlines. Then you've got other conferences, Ohio State, famously a Big Ten school. Why are Notre Dame not in a conference, and how are they able to compete? How are they such a big school if they're not involved in a conference, and how are they involved in such big games when they're essentially independent? They are registered as an FBS independent team, whereas if you look at the list of other playoff teams, you've got SEC, Big 10, Big 12. They're the kind of main ones. You got the other kind of scrappy ones, but they're cool too. No disrespect to those schools. We have some of them coming to Europe next year. So like, why are Notre Dame still independent? Is this a topic of conversation in college football? Should they join a conference? Do you have to be part of a conference?
No, a big thing with them, like one is they do have a media deal with NBC. So that generates a lot of revenue for both of them. So removing the financial pressure of joining a conference is basically just for the money. But a big part of it, I think, mostly, I mean, they say there's a lot of it of brand and tradition is their big thing is play like a champion today. That's great. And it's partly tied to their independence of being independent. But the biggest thing for me is that they have complete control over their schedule of what they're going to do. The independence allows them to set their own schedule of a year, balance their traditions with the rivals and stuff, and then with national exposure. And then they do play a lot of ACC teams because they can schedule this. So I think it's kind of just a cop out. Obviously they're going to look good when you can control your schedule. And I know that there was teams that they paid to play and then they lose, but that's just kind of like what you sign up for. Like, they are making a lot of money with their deal with NBC, and yes, they can control their schedule, but you do face some cons of that as well, because when that happens, you face something like this.
Okay, so interesting point there. You said that they literally make their own schedule, so they dictate who they play.
Yeah.
I mean, like, okay, so they're surely picking a few good teams, but I mean, like, is that not a massive issue in college football where SEC schools play many other SEC schools where, like, you're talking about the elite of the elite competition, and then Notre Dame is kind of handpicking opponents? Like, is there like, how are they getting away with that? That seems a little bit ridiculous for one school, one rule for them and one rule for everybody else.
Well, I mean, it's just kind of like what they set up. It's worked for them this far. No one's ever really had an issue with it. And I mean, I don't have an issue with it. Like, if you're going to choose your own schedule and you're going to win some, you're going to lose some, I mean, that's fine. Like, they still play, like I said, they play a lot of ACC teams. Like when they played Miami and they won, or they lost Miami 27-24. And like, I think that that's one of the big reasons that they are not in the playoff. But it comes down to a point like this, is like, if you're going to decline a bowl game, it's not like they'll never be like a conference champion. You know what I mean? Like, since you choose not to be in a conference, you have to face consequences of like not being independent, having your deal with NBC, controlling your schedule, and, the tradition that you want to call it. That's fine and all, but if that's going to be the case, then you kind of just have to like own up to it. I don't like, it's not like a big storyline in college football that people are always talking about, like Notre Dame's not in a conference, or like it is when it comes down to something like this. Like, you think about if they were in one and they had to play a set schedule and they knew what they were doing every year, like, would that change the implications of how the college football bracket worked out? I don't know. I mean, maybe like there's talk that like they're going to join a conference after not making the playoff. That's a joke. That's like not happening. That's not going to happen, but it is interesting, but it's not a big topic of discussion around here, at least because it's never really had to be. Like, it's kind of the back of your mind. Like, you don't really think about it, that you're not playing someone in the ACC or you're not playing someone in the Big Ten or SEC. If you play Notre Dame, it's like, I mean, they played Texas A&M this year. They chose to play an SEC team. They lost.
Yep.
So you do.
Yeah. Okay, so obviously, we began this show just coming towards the business end of the college football season. The playoffs are now set. All the games are done. We will be heading into the playoff picture and the playoff games very soon. So, Lauren from Florida, I want to get quick responses off the top of your head. I want some playoff winners. Okay, so to remind everybody, there are 12 teams who make the playoffs. Teams number 1 to 4. This year, that was, of course, Indiana, who we've spoken a lot about. They went 13-0, so they did not lose a game this year. Ohio State, Georgia, and Texas Tech. So they are the top 4 teams this year. So they go automatically through. They get a bye week in the first round of the playoffs. Then the teams seeded from 5 to 12, which includes some top teams, and then, as we mentioned, some other conference winners. They play each other in a seeded format. So seed 5 plays 12, and so on. So they play outside in, basically. Mm-hmm. So, and then obviously it's seeded, and then they go on and play this 1 to 4 seeds. Okay, Oklahoma, Alabama. What are we saying?
I don't know. I actually just talked about this. Is like, it's really hard to beat Alabama twice. Oklahoma has already done it. They barely won 23-21, but again, it's still a win over Alabama. It's still one of the losses that Alabama has on their schedule of their 3. And it's also just very rare to have a 3-loss team in the bracket, which is why I don't think that Alabama should be in it. They're the only 3-loss team in the playoffs. So, I mean, take that as you will. But I think that's also because ESPN just favors SEC in every scenario. But anyway, it's just really hard to, like I said, it's hard to beat them twice. Kalen DeBoer, Ty Simpson, they have a good offense. When they're slow, though. It's really hard to come back unless it's the fourth quarter. Fourth quarter, I love seeing what Alabama does because it's a competitive game no matter who they're playing. but Oklahoma has earned their spot in the playoff. Like they have not. They're similar to Indiana, where it's just like they've always looked competitive, but I mean, this is just their second year in the SEC, and look, they're in the playoffs. Like, I really don't know how to choose. It's hard to choose who I think is going to win because I am aware of how well Alabama plays when they have something to prove. But I would love to see Alabama have to play Indiana, because in that sense, that's another big question for me. But more than that, I want to see John Mateer and Mendoza go head to head, because I think that John Mateer is a very, very talented quarterback. He has obviously had to play and go through. He came back from his injury this year. He broke his finger. Like, he came back from that. He came back with win. He came back from doing that and then puts his team in a position to be in the college football playoff. And then you face Mendoza, who's the quote unquote Heisman winner to everyone right now, front runner. Everyone loves him. I like him a lot. I've said that already several times on the show, but I think that it would be very interesting to see Mateer go up against Mendoza a little bit more than would be the storyline of Alabama and Indiana would be better. But for me, quarterback wise, I would rather see Mateer and Mendoza. If I were to pick a winner, I think I am going to lean more towards Alabama. But an Alabama-Indiana game, that would be pretty set up. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know, because then you risk it. I mean, Oregon's going to beat JMU. So then you got Oregon facing Texas Tech. Texas Tech beats Oregon. I 100% see that being the future. Then you have Texas Tech and the winner of Alabama and Indiana. Then you just got the real like nitty-gritty going down to it. So
Yeah.
I would pick Alabama and I would pick Oregon, making it to the quarterfinals.
Okay. Do you think do you think Alabama beat Indiana?
Oh, I'm sorry. Oregon and Alabama make it into the quarterfinals. I don't know if
Sure.
Alabama would beat Indiana. I don't.
Okay.
I don't. I think they could, and I think it'd be the toughest game that Indiana would have to play, other than this past Saturday against Ohio State. I don't know. I have to see how the first round goes. I have to see how they play Oklahoma, or if they even beat
Yeah.
Oklahoma.
Yeah. I think certainly looking at the bracket of opening playoff games, Oklahoma, Alabama is definitely the one to watch out for. I mean, two of the biggest schools going head to head, and as you said, I think two of the best kind of programs as well, two of the best rosters. Okay, Texas A&M and Miami. We all know how much you love other Florida programs. FSU, obviously, another famous Florida school, and Miami, the University of Miami. Can they beat Texas A&M?
No, I don't think so at all. I do not see a world where Miami is somehow able to beat Texas A&M. I'm not going to lie. I think that Marcel Reed, while Carson Beck ranks higher than Marcel Reed in the QBR, like, I think that Marcel Reed is a more talented player than Carson Beck. I think that he has had to play harder teams. He's had a harder schedule. He's had to work hard to get to where he is now. I mean, I don't see a world where Miami somehow wins. I really don't. I will say Carson Beck is a good quarterback, but I think he is a huge ego, and he thinks a lot more of himself than he is able to execute on the field. And I think that Texas A&M's defense is a lot better than Miami's. So I see Texas A&M pulling that one off, and depending on the Tulane Ole Miss game, it's going to be a competitive game. But no matter what, I think that it is going to be Texas A&M playing Ohio State in the quarterfinals.
Yeah. And then, as you said, Ole Miss and Tulane, an interesting one for you. Ole Miss, of course, a situation we spoke a lot about previously. Lane Kiffin, a major coaching departure there at Ole Miss. And interestingly, Tulane's current head coach on his way to become a Florida Gator next year. So I'm sure you'll have one eye on John Summerall, the head coach of Tulane. I'm sure a lot of the Gator fans and Gator Nation will be watching to see what John Summerall can do. And I think maybe also kind of rooting for him because,
Gator Nation is a part of the green wave for the rest of the season. Like, we are.
Like John Summerall has always done well. He's always been in winning environments in the programs that he's been involved at previously. And I think honestly, like if I was a Gator Nation, I totally am extended Gator. you kind of want a head coach who's like, okay, like show me what you got. And if they can make, take a major win in the playoff scenario, it's like, oh, nice. Like we're getting this guy. Like this guy can win big games. This guy can hype up his players. This guy can get his team. Like this guy can get these guys ready for major games. And probably what would be an upset as well. I'm sure a lot of people would be kind of like, Ole Miss will definitely walk that game. So like I think it'd be good for Florida fans to kind of have that momentum, and even if Tulane don't go the whole way, it's like, oh well, John Summerall had a great year last year, so hopefully he can carry that momentum into Florida next season.
Yeah, I want him to be able to, like I said earlier, I want him to be able to come into this program feeling like he did everything that he could have for Tulane. He's taken them this far, and I want him to ride it out, take them as far as they possibly can. Be Ole Miss, like I said, I do kind of want to see a world where Pete Golding and the Rebels can prove that they don't need Lane Kiffin. That would just be super awesome. And I know that every game that Ole Miss wins, Lane Kiffin is still profiting. So that is another reason I'd like to see them lose. But at the end of the day, I think that I speak for all of my friends, at least Gator fans, that we will be supporting John Summerall in his college football, time. We want him to succeed. Again, we're getting a coach who is playing in the college football playoffs. He is facing Ole Miss. He is facing Lane Kiffin's old school. They have a lot to prove as well, though. Like I said, they need to prove what they can do without him. But Summerall's coming in as the Group of 5 school. He has enough to prove with that alone. Dude's also working with 2 jobs right now. Like he just hired an offensive coordinator for us today. Like it just became official today. Buster Faulkner is now the next offensive coordinator for Florida. He's hiring coaches for Florida. He's at practice with Tulane every day, making sure that they're ready for the playoffs. Like he's a hard worker. So no matter what, I want to see him succeed as far as he possibly can with Tulane before he becomes an official Gator.
Very good.
But I don't know. I'm not going to lie. It's going to be a very good game. I don't have a solid projection of who's going to win.
Okay. Yeah, I'll allow you to sit on the fence for that one.
Okay, thank you.
and next year, the Gators. Next year we will be discussing the Gators in the playoff picture. I have no doubt about that.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. I just knocked on wood too.
Okay, and on that note, I think that's a fitting way to end. The playoffs are up and coming. It's probably the best part of the college season if your school is involved. If not, you can just kind of hate watch and hope that the schools that you hate don't go far. But honestly, it's been a very, very interesting college football season. As you mentioned earlier, like there's just been storylines every week. And I, in my opinion, certainly as a European watching on, it's all eyes on Indiana. I mean, people just love what have happened there. I think it's the biggest, possibly the biggest storyline in college football ever. It's bigger than any individual storyline. It's bigger than a kind of LSU's historic season in 2019 or any individual effort that any players put in. I mean, what they've done this year to go undefeated and then knock off Ohio State and have a Heisman winning quarterback. It's just it's absolute fairy tale stuff. And I think, I mean, even though they're the number 1 seed, I still kind of look at them as a bit of an underdog, and I love a good underdog story. So I think it's tough to root against them going through the playoffs.
I know. How could you go and watch Fernando Mendoza's winning speech last weekend and then be like, I want to see that guy lose?
Yeah, exactly.
Like what?
Exactly. Okay. So we'll wrap it up there. Episode 4 is in the books. Lauren, thanks as always for your insight. Valuable as ever. And thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you next week for the 5th episode.